Hi friends, good evening, and this is your host Ankit Khanelwal joining you from Delhi, India, and we have Kimberly Calhoun joining us from North Carolina. Good morning, Kimberly, and we have Dr. Arthur, our special guest on Saturday, joining us from North Carolina. Good morning, Dr. Arthur, and good morning to US, and good morning to the world. And today it's Starry Saturday with Science and Technology on IBM TV, and we have a great lineup. Starting from doctors, and we'll might be finishing up with chess charts, and then a DJ show with Dr. Arthur. So it's a great lineup for the day.
Which was a lot of fun, by the way. I don't know if anyone got a chance to watch it last Saturday night, but I beamed in, and it was a lot of fun. So,
You won't believe I got a viewer's message, and he was asking me, is Dr. Arthur having a twin, or Dr. Arthur was doing the same show?
there you go. So yeah, you know, it's all about music and healing, and we've been talking about that probably the past 2 weeks, right? Which is really pretty good and on course when you have a situation like this. When you've either had a tragedy or something bad happen, you go through cycles, right? So at first we're all a little confused, eye struck, whoa, what's happening? And then we get a little angry, right? But now we're going through that cycle of how do we heal? And everyone talks about music, which that's what you've been doing that for how many years, Dr. Arthur?
Oh, since I was 18.
Wow. So that's and you're a doctor and you heal people, so the importance of the music, don't you?
Oh, very much so. And in fact, I'm overall, I don't consider myself just a doctor. I consider myself a healer. So I looked at healing in different aspects. So that's why I learned the hypnosis. That's why I do my show on 8 o'clock on Saturdays, because my patients, they just need something to do, and staying at home, there's just that little ounce of music, and me introducing them to music that they may not have heard before allows them to just have something else to do, something to keep their mind off of things. Also, tonight, one of my patients requested that I play Kenny G. And when I was listening to Kenny G to get prepared for tonight's show, he's very hypnotic. It's a very inhale, exhale, breathing exercise, the way he plays his music. So I'm going to have people do breathing exercises to calm themselves down while the Kenny G music's going on.
Oh, that'd be cool. And I love Kenny G. Oh my God, that's like one of my favorites. And the thing is I probably have not played Kenny G in a few years.
Exactly. And I haven't either. And, I got into that realm of where everybody made fun of him and Michael Bolton. So I stopped listening. But when I was preparing, I instantly relaxed. I was like, oh, that's why there was that magic. And that's why everybody loved him, aside from the curly long hair and all that. The music really is amazingly relaxing and takes you through emotions that you forget about. So when I play it tonight, it's going to make a lot of people remember why he was so good, and, to stop making fun of the music and get back into it.
Right. And it's really good music, though. I never really paid attention to the people who were making fun of him. I always found his music just fun. And, well, I shouldn't say fun, but yeah, fun and romantic, engaging. So no, I'm glad you're going to be doing that. I look forward to that this evening. That'll be good music for Saturday night. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. In fact, I tried to feature Alexandra May, since, and when I played it, I saw comments coming in, what's her name? Where's she at? So it's a good place to feature newer artists as well, to get them exposed.
Exactly. And that's what we're all about, is not just the big current artists, but on my journey to Nashville, when I was doing my song and recording it in Nashville, I learned so much that there are so many great songwriters, composers that never make it to the radio, right? Or never really get labeled. I actually met somebody who was labeled twice, but just never got out there for whatever reason. And but very, very good. So I told Nick, I said, why don't we get these artists on our network, but not just from the U.S., from all over the world. And so thank you for doing that for Alexandra. She's good, isn't she?
Oh, I love the song about, what was it, Ross and Rachel? And then
and the couch
tune, and you're like, earworm. That was a very, that touched me. That was a great song.
Yeah, she has that way. If you ever really watch her perform, she knows when to pause. This is what I say. The best performers, if you really pay attention, they know when to and naturally get back in, and she has that. And so I'm glad you did that. Thank you very much. So a lot of good things are happening. I think we've done a little bit of a re-entry here in the North Carolina area. What has been your positive thoughts about that?
Well, the greatest thing is people were showing pictures on Facebook last night about the big places in town where people hang out, go to restaurants, and there really weren't that many people. It might have been because of the thunderstorms and all, but the bottom line was, even though there was a prediction that people would go crazy and just go out and pack the places, it didn't happen. Restaurants are doing it slowly and doing it smart. They're still doing takeout right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them aren't prepared to get people into their building, so they're not. And I think that's great. People are being responsible. But there are also the nightmare stories where, I've diagnosed somebody with coronavirus and I'm in the supermarket and I see them walking around the supermarket without a mask on. So there's the great stories, but there's also those individual stories where you're like, what are you doing? Really, you got to care for the people in your town. So on the one hand, I'm very optimistic and just looking at the numbers, looking good. But for me personally, being on the front line, I've seen the most people that have had coronavirus in this week. In my town. So it looks like we're in my opinion, this might not be epidemiological because it's just what I'm observing up front, but there's a acceleration going on in my town, I believe, and it'll only get worse as people get out there. But at the same time, the numbers of deaths, the numbers of hospitalizations probably will be okay based on the new models that have been coming out with this virus. So I think we're going to be okay. We just have to keep a close eye on things and just make sure people care about each other and do the things they need to do to stay physically distant and still wearing the masks and wearing gloves if you have to. Not always. I know there's some controversy about wearing gloves and that you can contaminate yourself. But when you're touching things that and you take them right off and throw them away, fine. But just doing the right things, people will be okay.
Yeah, and we've even talked about Alexandra's family. They actually sell those face shields.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about the difference between the different kinds of face shields, and they sell the ones that lift up because they said that it was safer for people who had to work all the time. But of course, you're only supposed to use them for a few hours and then go have them sanitized and then bring them back. But everybody's coming up with some good practices. I'm like you. I was a little frustrated when I did have to go to the store, and I'm wearing my goggles and a mask and trying to be considerate of other people in case I might be sick. And somebody comes in with a little bit of attitude, no mask on, and then they start sneezing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just irritated at that moment. I don't even want to be in there, because, and I'm sure they have the attitude, I can't be sick. There's nothing wrong with me. This is all crazy. This is made up. I can't breathe when I wear a mask. Because I hear that all the time. That's the excuse I get from everyone. I can't breathe. And they think they're not going to infect anyone. They don't realize it's almost a 10 to 14 day incubation period that you're still contagious before you get symptoms. So I'm, like you said, just be conscious about your actions, right?
Correct.
So you've noticed the rates going up. Do you think it's because we're able to do more testing, or is it just maybe that it's spreading a little bit more and we need to do something else? Or
in my town, I believe that's correct. One of the things that we finally were able to do was we had large mass testing for the first time last weekend, where more than 400 people were finally able to get tested, regardless of whether they had symptoms or not. So yes, the numbers are going to go up because of that, but I'm not paying attention to that number anymore. That number is going to keep going up. It's going to keep looking alarming. I'm now looking at hospitalizations and deaths and so far we've only had 2 deaths in my county. Unfortunately, one just happened 2 days ago, and it was a person that I knew. So, morbid conditions. We're all mourning that one, but I hate to say it, but there's going to be more, and we just have to be ready for it. And, but the hospitalizations and all is what I'm really looking at, because we could have tons and tons of people getting it, the herd immunity, which is what we really even want. But we're going to see, we'll probably see a little blip in the numbers in the hospitalizations, but as long as people keep doing phase 2 the right way, we'll get to phase 3 pretty quickly. And not only that, have less people in the hospital than we would have expected. So looking at the latest projections from the CDC, their new models, they have 4 or 5 different models they just released yesterday. All of them have a 0.002 to a 0.004 death rate, which is an excellent number compared to what we thought, 11% in Italy and all that. So right now, because of everything that people are doing, because of people being smart, because of physical distancing and just being smart about how you take care of your hands, you take care of your face, take care of your shoes especially. One thing you don't hear about is just shoe hygiene. And I keep telling my patients, disinfect your shoes, wear a crappy pair of shoes when you go out to the grocery store, leave them at the door, be like a Japanese family, leave them at the door, disinfect them, wear a different pair of shoes in the house. And that way you won't infect the other people that are walking on that linoleum floor where we've known it can last 7 to 17 days on plastic. So shoe hygiene is just one that people aren't aware of, but that's why the Southeastern Asian countries are doing so well, is that's one of their normal practices.
Yeah, that is. And you know, it's weird. I worked with the Japanese for 5 years, and I got into that practice during those years. And when, you know, it seems like when I got away from working with the Japanese, that practice just kind of died away. And I think I'm going to get back into that practice. I do generally go barefoot in the house anyway. So leaving my shoes at the door is just me, but I haven't made family do that. And that's probably, you're right. Have shoes that go, outerwear that goes to public, right? And keep it in, you know, I keep it in the laundry room. Yes, and Kit.
So what we do in India, we have a practice that we have to keep our shoes and everything out. That's the practice. But also what from past maybe a decade or so, we are also following a lot of Western rules that take out the shoes and then, I mean, roam around with all those shoes. But a general practice, it's generally, we have to keep it outside the house. It's not inside the house as well. And then whenever we have a temple or whenever we pray or things like that, there are no shoes allowed, strictly not allowed.
Yep. I remember my med school classmate, when he got married, they left all the shoes, you know, he was married Muslim, and they leave all the shoes constantly. There's a ton of shoes. And then when he gets married, they're supposed to steal his shoes since he's the guy getting married. Well, they stole the imam's shoes by mistake, so he got really mad.
You know,
so that is also a ritual when you get married. The other party, the bride sisters, they capture your shoes and then they ask for money. So it's a ritual in India, basically. Yeah.
They take the wrong shoe though.
But I think the important point is that so we have one of the religions which is known as Sikh religion. What they do is if you visit their temple, which is known as Gurudwara, you will put your shoes outside the Gurudwara at a shoe place, and then they will clean your shoes. They will clean your shoes, and then when you come back, you will find it clean and it's like a dry clean and well polished and things like that. So that's one of the community, practices they follow, and it's kind of a giving back to the society.
And that makes it like, if we want to open churches up again, that's a nice practice to get started.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think slowly we'll get to that point again.
You are also cleaning the shoes, you are removing the germs and bacteria and things like that, and you are making it, maybe sanitizing the shoes, kind of a thing. We follow these kind of practices regularly, but as I told you, we Indians are also following a lot of Western things, and that's why we are forgetting our own rituals. But I think things will come back.
Well, you know, there are some practices that monks have in some Catholic temples, Catholic monks, and you are to go in fully clothed, you know, scarves, and you can't wear the shoes from the street in. You have to, I don't recommend going in barefoot, but, you know, if you want to go in sock foot or something, but you cannot wear your shoes. Probably it started from not bringing in diseases, right?
Yep.
That I really want to believe that, and then they probably just made that as a sacred way of doing things, so that the people go, oh, okay, this is just sacred. This is how I do things. But I truly believe these things started out to protect people, not just as a sacred blessing and way of doing things. But I think that these are good practices, and we need to. So something else that was brought up was because we are engaging in going into the grocery stores or whatever, and we're wearing our mask and everything, and then we get in our cars. And the doctors this week had highly recommended that we start sanitizing our cars a little bit. What are your thoughts on that, doctor?
I agree, but if your car's out in the sun, the UV light's probably going to do a good job as well.
There we go. Mine parks in the garage, but I'll back it out and put it in the sun a couple hours a day.
But you just have to be careful. I don't know if you've seen the pictures or videos of hand sanitizer exploding in cars because when the alcohol gets heated up. So you just have to be careful. Don't leave the stuff sitting in the car in the heat, especially with spring and summertime coming up.
Yeah, that's a good practice. Maybe people should have like a little kit, right? And it's got your hand sanitizer in it, and maybe little wipes too, and goggles and whatever, right? And then that way you just take it with you everywhere you go. Maybe I'll make
I have one.
As a survivalist, oh, go ahead. As a survivalist prepper, I have that kit. I had that kit all along. You're supposed to have that stuff. God forbid, chemical attack or some kind of dust storm or whatever. You should have that stuff with you in a little kit all the time, not just because.
And a flashlight.
Yep, and a flashlight. And one other thing that helps you survive if the world goes down is a knife. You never know when you're going to need a knife to pry something open or just cut some cord. So my prepper kit is always flashlight, knife, first aid, sanitizing, and I actually had a N95 in my kit.
That's smart.
Because say a building collapses or there's an earthquake, you got to have that mask. You saw what happened with the 9/11 people when they didn't have it. So that's part of my kit now. Always has been. So there are lots of good resources. My instructor, I have 3 main instructors: Kevin Estella, who wrote the book 101 Ways to Survive in the Woods; Tony Nestor, who's a high-level expert. He teaches the SEALs; and Stefan Grush. He just does all-around training. And then Steve Tarani, who teaches knife training. So these are all my instructors. Great books, great resources. And Tony Nestor has an amazing book on how to make your prep kit for any kind of disaster. So hurricane season's coming up in North Carolina. His book is very solid. It's very short. Tells you where to buy things on Amazon very cheaply. So you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars like these people selling on Amazon with these big kits. But you also have to pick the things that you enjoy. So if you love coffee, you better bring coffee with you. If you love candy, kids need toys. Those are the things people forget to put in their kits, the creature comforts that you need. So yes, very much so everybody should have some kind of survival kit. It doesn't always have to be something you bug out of your house with, because a lot of times your house is the safest place. But if your house doesn't have the basics, pandemics like this, if you're staying in your house for more than 3 months, it becomes important. So luckily we can still go to the grocery stores, but God forbid some kind of electrical problem happens and the stores go down. Then you got to fend for yourself. So you always want to be prepared 1 to 3 months minimum for if you got a shelter in your house.
And we've in common practice of that in North Carolina because of the hurricanes and we've had tornadoes. So kind of common practice, especially I live out in the country. So it's one of those things that, stock up. Well, we have well water, but we still fill the tubs with water when the storms are coming, stock up on water, and we save our wine bottles. Here's what's funny: we clean them real good, and we use those as our water bottles, our emergency water bottles when the storms come, because they're not that plastic, right? And the water actually tastes better coming out of them. But no, you're right, and I would like to maybe, as a practice, one day build an emergency kit on the show.
Sure.
One of the things I was always told, make sure we have a ball cap and whistle, right? Because a whistle is easier and you probably know this from going into the woods and hiking, and we used to carry one hiking, is if you're lost, it's better than screaming, right? Blow a whistle. And because
when you're dehydrated, you lose your voice.
Right. So
how about cap with the GPS basically? Because the whistle might not listen because of the lot of background noise. But if you have a GPS and if you have an infrared something, we can scan that person.
That's correct.
That's a good thing too.
Cap. You roam around a drone above maybe a forest or wherever it is, and the drone can easily identify who is there, and through that cap they can identify the person name and other details as well.
Mm-hmm. They're also just a compass so that you can find your way out of places. finding your north is always very, very important, and being able to maybe get direction to go somewhere. There are so many good survival practices, and I found a really cool thing for a house, and it's a means to, but you can use it out in the woods and stuff like that. But it's a solar power generator that pumps water and cleans water. It's got a 3 filter system with ultraviolet in it to sanitize the water. And the ultraviolet was WHO approved. And but what's great about it is it generates real power, right? So when you have, so you don't have to have the gas generator, right? Which we have, but this is really cool because it's not loud and noisy. It doesn't have the fumes. It does require the sun, but usually after a storm, the sun comes. And it's nice to be able to have some power that's not caused by a gasoline generator. So there are various different things you can do to prep your house that are cost effective, that you can use throughout the year. And that's what I always tell people too. Don't just have these generators and not ever use them. Crank them up, every once in a while, and use them. But these are good things to even think about, not just, for the pandemic type stuff, but
But I think that we also have to do maybe not annually, but maybe twice, maybe once in 2 years, that we need to go out and live in the woods and then see how we can manage or adapt ourselves. Because if something happens, we don't know how to deal with it.
Yep.
And
But
it should be a good. It should be a regular food.
But don't go out cold, because you see all these people like go to the Grand Canyon. They don't even have a backpack with water, and they go down 200 feet and then they can't make it back up because
can't come back up.
How high it is. That's the number one reason people get rescued. I remember I saw a family going down the Grand Canyon. They were just going on a family excursion with a baby with a stroller and no equipment. And but you would never think of that because it's a vacation spot and there's all these facilities, but people get stuck down there just in that situation all the time. So you got to look ahead before you do those things.
Just go get a guide. That's what I did. I didn't go without a guide. I had a friend do that. Walk down, just tennis shoes, and just, it was two guys that I worked with, and they happened to be there on business. Let's just go down. And they got down there and they couldn't get back up. They were very, very sick, dehydrated, like you said. They wore their shoes out, like walked their shoes out. So be careful. I mean, but I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go down there. I mean, I do a lot of hiking through the woods and stuff, but no, the Grand Canyon, get a guide. If you've never been before, just get somebody who has, right?
But even outside of the Grand Canyon, a lot of people are taking hikes now because they're, locked in the house, so they take a hike. A basic hike is one of the number one reasons a person gets lost or gets dehydrated or gets stuck. And you got to have just some basic, like I bring a ferro rod, I bring a survival blanket because they're so small now that you can really pack them in.
Yes.
Water, multiple things that help you survive just in case you get lost on your hike, including a whistle, including some kind of noisemaker, and of course a charged cell phone and an extra battery for me. But the bottom line is even just a basic hike, you should have some basic survival equipment with you.
Always, because you don't know if you get bit by a snake, if you fall, you I had my brother was an avid hiker, and he hiked into the mountains, and it was a hot, beautiful week, that they were planning, and they got caught in a snowstorm. And fortunately for them, they had thin blankets, right? But they weren't expecting a snowstorm that time of year. And so you never know. The elements can shift on you in a heartbeat. Mother Nature is not something that you count on to to be in your favor. Even even rains can cause you to, get cold. If you get caught into a rainstorm, you can get sick. So
once again, just like you're saying, your car should have a basic emergency and a preparedness kit. So blankets, water. I have one of those really small batteries that can jumpstart the car so I don't have to rely on somebody else. Those things are only $60. Everybody should have one of those in their car.
I agree.
Yeah,
Nobody carries jumper cables anymore. Nobody.
I would like to mention one thing with what happened 3 days ago with the wrestler called Sab in Venice Beach. So he was at the beach with his son, and he was little, near to the wave basically, and suddenly something happened and they were out of control. And then the rescue team reached there, but because he was a wrestler, his weight was more than 200 pounds.
Wow.
So it was difficult for the life coaches or the coaches to manage it out. So he said that, okay, I mean, survive. I mean, I'll try to manage it out. You should take care of my son.
Yes.
And then the body of the wrestler, you found it after 3 days.
Wow.
So because of the excess weight, it's difficult for anyone to manage it out. I have a news. I can share the news link. We will have a better idea.
You know, there in any situation, like you said, in a car too, and I've noticed that the cars don't even come with a jack anymore. You have to go buy your own jacks to change a tire. I have AAA, but it doesn't mean they can. Nowadays, AAA can't get to you sometimes. I mean, it's just.
That's the news.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear, it's really sad, huh?
So it's just because of excess weight, he was not able to do it, and then there was some crash down with Repetide.
Yeah, riptides kill
Yeah,
every year in New Zealand. Riptides kill at least 2 or 3 people.
Well, in North Carolina, we have anywhere from 6 to 10, just in our small state, because people don't pay attention to. Every day when I go to the beach, I go talk. We have probably one of the world's best lifeguard training systems here in North Carolina, and I go to the beach rangers. They have a rangers, and I go to the ranger station, and I just look at the chart and I talk to the rangers. What are the tides like? They put flags up and down the beach, and nobody pays attention to the flags. But the flags are there to tell you the rip tides are there. But you know, be prepared too. You know, maybe have a floating device with you. So if you are out there and you know, you see somebody, take the floating device with you. Don't go in after the person yourself. Go, you know, because the riptides can rip that off of your hands as well. But I studied lifeguard, and so these are things that they teach you, right? Don't go in after the person unless you are able to take care of yourself first, because all too often both people will drown, and that's stupid. Even though it's hard to watch somebody else drown, you know, they even say sometimes, and I hate saying this, but they would even say, wait until they are out and then go get them, you know, so you're not fighting them. So there's just, you know, but people don't know these things because they never trained in it. Dr. Arthur, something that is concerning to me is a natural impulse for people if somebody's having a heart attack or can't breathe, is we go apply CPR, which could be very dangerous now. Probably dangerous before, but you know, are there any new practices for CPR that they're suggesting for people given this COVID disease?
Well, the latest, when I took my latest training in BLS, there is a protocol where you don't do any breaths, where you just do the circulation, you just do the chest compressions, you don't put your lips up against the other person, or including even if you have one of those barriers to prevent any of the air getting into you. But there is a protocol where you just do chest compressions, because we now know that the arterial blood work, or the blood, will carry oxygen for a long period of time and get it to the tissues that need it, even if you're not giving breaths in during the CPR. So there is a protocol, but key is everybody should get BLS trained. Everybody should learn basic CPR, basic life support, basic how to use one of those AEDs, so they know they can shock a person if there is one available, without having much more training than what the basic CPR training gives you. And you could save many lives by doing that. But yes, there is a protocol where you just do chest compressions without breaths, and it works just as good. We're starting to see that saves lives as well. So there's no reason to put your lips against somebody right now while you're waiting for EMS, unless you know you want to take the risk, but that's on you. But there's no reason to do that right now. But if it's the last resort and you're willing to take that risk, but as you said, just like in the lifeguarding part, you don't put yourself at more risk until the situation lends itself. So you shouldn't put yourself at more risk to do CPR. So you do the CPR, but don't do the lips right now if you're not sure about their coronavirus status or any status. So.
Well, that's good to know, because and they need to get this message out there. But you know, for years and years we were trained this way, and that's a change of mindset, right?
It's completely different. Well, that's the thing; it's always evolving. You know, just like the epidemiology and the models for coronavirus are changing on the fly, because we have to, because we're just not that aware or sure with the science yet, and we're still learning. CPR, advanced cardiac life support, is always changing. So what I'm doing now for CPR and advanced cardiac life support is 180 degrees different than when I did med school. There's so many, like we freeze people now. We put people in cold chills. Yeah, and that was invented at, I believe, in Raleigh. The EMS there put people under, they give them a cold IV. It's almost like they fall into a frozen lake, because we see that people survive frozen lakes. So you can actually help a person who's having a stroke or a heart attack by making their core temperature go down. So that's something we never did until recently because of all the studies done here in Raleigh. So now that's the basic part of what EMS does when somebody's having a problem, now that we know that we can help people survive longer. But yeah, it's changing all the time. So it's really important to update your CPR training, because it changes so often. So people, this might be the first time they're hearing that they don't have to put their lips on a person. So that fear can instantly disappear. You can do the Heimlich maneuver, you can do the chest compressions. But if it's one of your loved ones and you're willing to take a risk, such as if it's a baby or a child, and every new mother should have CPR training. And I believe most of the hospitals in North Carolina do that. But if it's your child, of course you're going to do it. You know, if it's your family member, if it's your mom, if it's your dad, of course. So you want to learn that protocol as well to give them that little extra edge. But if it's somebody you don't know, there's no reason to put yourself at that risk, and you can just do the chest compressions now.
Well, I appreciate that. And you know what? Maybe, I don't know if it's allowable, but maybe we can do a CPR class on the show. You know, I know that it's better when it's live, but just a whole session of, you know, this is the new way we do things. You know, talking about it has helped me a lot. I just have to retrain my brain, because your first impulse is to immediately check the breathing, check, you know, and then the kiss of life, right? And but I am going to put my mental brain back into what you just told me, and try to remember those things, because I've not done retraining in years. I trained very, very young, and maintained it through probably until I was about 30, and then I stopped. Not that I shouldn't have stopped, though. That was
very important to get updated knowledge, just so these questions are easily answered. And I wouldn't be the best person to do it, because I'm not a certified trainer.
No.
So you want to get a certified trainer, but it's very easy to get the training. Just find out from your local health departments or whatnot. Find out who.
Yeah, maybe that's what we can do, is find somebody who's willing to share a video with us, and because I think the more we share it globally, the better this information is, right? Because everybody in the world should know this new process, and that's good to know. The freezing part is interesting to me, right? I've heard this, but that's interesting that they're doing that, and they found that to be a good technique. Just curious, do you know enough about it to say, is it just through the IV?
Blankets and IV.
Okay, so that they have a freezing blanket.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really cool to know. I mean, just these little things just really help. I know when I go to the hospital is always cold, right? And I love those little heated blankets they put on me. I can't imagine putting a cold blanket on me, but if it's going to save my life, wow, yeah. That's really, really interesting. And then that you've got so many other different things. But let's talk more now. Let's kind of shift gears about how we can become a little bit happier. You know, we've all kind of been inside maybe way too much. For whatever reason, I think people thought, oh, shelter in place or stay at home meant stay inside. And of course, we were kind of during that change of season, so it was cooler. But we should be getting outside a little bit more, shouldn't we?
Absolutely. Yep. Sunlight, we now know, helps kill this virus. So as much sun as you can get, of course, wearing sunblock, don't get skin cancer while you're doing it, and avoid ticks. If you need to put on bug spray to keep the ticks off of you. But yeah, absolutely. Going out hiking, all this stuff with all the safety measures we talked about. Going to the beach, now that the beaches are open, I think that's fine. But keep your distance and try not to contaminate yourself. Not go crazy, but the salt water is good. It kills off bacteria and things. That's why the salt water is so healthy. So yeah, outdoors is very important. The sunlight, of course, we have light therapy when people have seasonal affective disorder. You give them a light to use during the dark winter times. So sunlight does bring up your spirits as well, and it brings up your vitamin D, which is also protective against coronavirus. So very important to get your outdoor time, but do it safe so you don't get a tick bite like I just did and have to take antibiotics.
But you can't prevent ticks, right? I mean, if they're going to find you, they're going to find you. They're just like one of those little.
Well,
Like
wearing
mosquitoes.
top to bottom and putting some bug spray on.
Doctor Azhar, why can't we set up a clinic or an OPD outside in the ground?
Why can't we?
Yeah, why can't we set up the OPDs on the ground with the sun rays and all the sunlight and things like that?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, that's what I mean, because it helps doctors and it helps the environment. If it's good, I mean, you can have a tent and then we can set up those clinics at the tent. Maybe something like that can be possible.
Yep. But the problem is then you've got the opposite people who, with migraines, the bright lights are bad for them and all that. So you got to be, in the middle.
Yeah, in the middle, but yeah.
Sometimes we can do it. I mean, occasionally we can do it once a month or maybe whenever it's possible.
Yeah, I think like you said, a good balance, a healthy balance of getting outside, getting fresh air.
So doctor, I'll tell you, I think in India right now, the temperature is more than 97 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's difficult to stand in the sun.
Yep.
So I don't know what to do. But do you think the early morning sun light or consuming the sun is more important than the afternoon time?
I don't think there's a difference, except for it's less intense and it's more that's when you take your camera out because the most beautiful pictures are there. So that's part of the making yourself happy. When it's ultimately at the top and it's beaming down on you and you get tired real hard, it's really easy to get discouraged and tired in that moment. But I'll be honest with you, any way of getting outside any time of the day is fine, as long as you're not burning yourself up and you're covering up at the appropriate times. I know in India, people wear more clothing when the sun is up and it's really high, which a lot of people in the United States don't do because they want to get that sunlight. But you stay cooler when you put more clothing on at those very intense heat. So, I think people just need to remember that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that the more layered clothing, you stay cooler. So because you wouldn't think that, but it's true. It is true. You're keeping the sun off of you, and I think there maybe a little bit of breeze comes in when you shift those clothing.
Yeah. When I did a 4-day desert training, and they gave us shamags just like Arabs use. And we wore them, and they you could dip them in water so the steam would cool you off, or you could use it as a covering, or you could wear it as a scarf to keep yourself cool, just like, those really high-tech $30 things that people wear. Well, the $7 shamag does the same thing and has a lot of versatility and survival to it. So we understood why those are used in the nations, because our desert training, extreme heat, very dry situations, and that shamag probably saved my life one time when I almost passed out. So.
Rakesh, how are you doing in Hong Kong?
Oh, we're doing well, very well, as a matter of fact. I just had an intensive day of tuitions. Saturdays are when I do most of my teaching, and so most of it on Zoom. But there's one little boy who I go and visit, and it's Saturdays are lovely. So it's been great. It's no problem here. We've never been in a lockdown. I was just curious about the cold blankets. Is it that they want to induce hypothermia? Because I heard that hypothermia protects the brain.
Right. Because it flushes all that blood to the brain and the heart where it's really most needed. There are other mechanisms. There are hormonal mechanisms. There's a whole... I'm not as versed in it because that's not my realm. It's when my patient has that, I put them in the ambulance for them to do that stuff. But I know about it. I've read enough about it, and I learned about it during my advanced cardiac life support courses. But it is, yes, to bring down the core temperature so that more of the blood goes to the brain and the heart, and the preserving mechanisms kick in. But I don't think we're sure of 100% of all the mechanisms yet, but we do know that people survive better.
Wow. No, that is... but like you said, we find new things every day in our science, and so that those are great things to know. Rakesh, you actually go visit a student?
Yes, I go. There's this little boy who's he's now 13. I started teaching him when he was about 9. So yeah, and so today I showed him pictures, and I said, describe it to me, so that I can improve his fluency in English, and show him how to do things. So it was fun. It's a bit unusual because they don't do that in schools, where they show a picture and say, describe it to me. Let's in your own words. So I thought I'd try that out, and it worked out quite well. So, yeah, it was fun today. It was a fun day. I'm a little tired, but otherwise okay. Yeah, it's been a good day. Yeah, very
When
good
you
day.
meet a student, the practices in Hong Kong have been the disciplines and practices have been very good. You go out, you wear your outer layer clothing. Do you wear masks?
Yes, I wear a mask, and again I change everything when I come back. Uh, I drive down, so I'm not in public transport. I used to use public transport, but nowadays I drive, and it's I don't sort of loaf around too much. I pass through a mall on the way to his house, but otherwise it's quite cool. Everybody's wearing a mask. The security in the building, everybody wears a mask. So there's, it's a kind of a collective memory of SARS, which has made people realize that these things are serious. You don't mess around with it. So people just follow the rules. The government doesn't have to enforce it. No, nobody has to enforce it. Nobody will come up to you and say, wear a mask. They just look at you funny, and then you missed out wearing your mask. So
I'm curious, what is your shoe hygiene protocol over there?
we have here's my hygiene kit. We have these little sort of little napkins, paper napkins, and then we put our when we take off our masks, we put them into a little plastic bag, and then we've got the sanitizers. That's the alcohol sanitizer, and then I've got an alcohol spray. So we use all of these, and then we have wet wipes also. Mm-hmm. So I just carry the whole lot in this bag like this, and I have a mask usually. Mostly it's mine. It's lurking around. So whenever I go out, I have this mask, and it's just wear it on. And even if I go down to the car, which is parked inside our gated colony, just wear it on, because if I meet somebody on the way, they should not feel uncomfortable. So that's what we do. Shoes are outside the house for 8 hours. We don't. If we go out, we keep the shoes outside the house on little stands for 8 hours, and then after 8 hours, we can take them into the house because the virus dies in 8 hours' time. Mm-hmm. So that's the routine. It's pretty simple. I'm amazed that people are. I saw some people fighting on television. You're letting carbon monoxide go back into your lungs, and it's just fundamentally wrong. The physiology is completely wrong.
Well, that's everybody's saying don't wear a mask. I'm like, okay, so you're okay with going into surgery with none of the people in the room wearing a mask?
Wearing a mask.
And if your surgeon wears a mask, he's going to pass out and smack his head into your appendix. And I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense, because surgeons have been wearing them for all these years and never getting hyper.
Yes, no, nobody died because they wore a mask.
But
I'm just amused at that. Yeah.
Maybe some people are not wearing them properly, right? So maybe if they got the right kind of mask, mm-hmm. and they were wearing them properly, they wouldn't feel like they're suffocating. Yes. And I think that's the problem. I think people are just, not putting it on right. One of the things I was real proud of is my son went and learned how to properly make them. He went to the CDC site and he learned how to not just make them, but how to wear them. And he made them so that he could, they weren't disposable, right? He made them, and he learned how to sanitize them, and he reuses his mask all the time. But I think people just need to sit down and figure out, okay, this is the right way to wear it. And like you said, do you want the doctors to be operating on you without a mask?
The studies have shown that you don't spread infections.
The other thing they do here in the 7-Elevens, if you're somebody who's elderly and not too rich, they will give you free masks.
Nice.
So they give you free masks if you're elderly, and even you just have to ask them. You don't have to show that you're not looking too good or something, too wealthy. You just say that I'm over so and so, and they look at your little identity card, and that's it. They give you free masks. So you are never, even if you've forgotten, say you're an elderly person, you've forgotten to take your mask, you can go to a 7-Eleven, pick up a mask from there free. You can buy it. It's so cheap that you can buy it.
I went to our grocery store yesterday and suited up, and they got masks for sale, and these really little, one mask per bag, right? And it's $5. Oh my God, I could not believe it. But they're thin. They look so thin. I don't even think they're quality masks.
Quality masks.
I don't think they would keep anything out. I don't know how they're getting away with that.
This is from India. When the moment we heard about this, my wife, Florence, she ordered a whole lot of these from Amazon, some from Germany, some from Italy, some from India. So, and when she was doing it, I always yield to her wisdom because she's been through all this, and I thought it was a bit too much, but I just kept my counsel, and now it's so useful.
Yeah, it becomes a habit.
So yes, we've got lots of it from different parts of the world, and some from Hong Kong, and enough to keep us for a few months. Not years supply or something like that, but just for a few months. And now it's become available in Hong Kong, so we're not too worried. Good quality. So
I'm
not worried at all.
To even go to daily testing. And the reason is I know that you could test and 5 minutes later be infected, but at least you would catch it within the 24 hours or maybe even a 48-hour period, which early detection to me is better than waiting until you've got the symptoms and it's too late. But I'm willing to do that if they would go ahead and start approving the test kits to be sent, just like you would, because you're not eating it, you're not taking it, digesting it. It's a test, like a pregnancy test, right? It's I'm willing to do that to help isolate the problem and help early detection. I wish we would move towards that. I don't know how you feel about that, Dr. Arthur, but
how I feel about what?
Early, like daily testing, the rapid test kits. Would you?
If the cost was right, because you could end up spending thousands of dollars with the current cost of the test. I know the cheapest test that we found was $23 per test. So if you're testing daily, that's $100 a week.
No, so there are ways to buy it wholesale. It's a lot less expensive than that. A lot less.
Who's going to pay for it and who's going to distribute it?
I think that, the government just sent out a stimulus check of $1,200 to everybody to stay home. Why not send the kids that wholesale are around $10 for 25.
Oh, okay.
So
that's what we have to pay in my office, because we've been looking for kits that we can do in our office rapid, and it's not $10 for 20.
No, see, we know this. Yeah, we know this because
they're not going to give it to us for that much. So I don't know how I'm going to get it to my patients for that much. So yes, you have to come up with a government program that would do that.
So it would be nice if the government would just buy them in bulk. That's if you buy at 500,000, I think, or a million.
I think the minimum is 1 million. That is what they are doing right now.
Right.
Minimum 1 million, and they are to their sub-distributors likewise. So that's how, and also it's government to government process, because it's difficult time and people might not turn up and they say that it's a fault ticket or maybe they don't want to pay or things like that. So they wanted to do between government, and that's how they wanted to supply.
Is that the kit that gives you an instant response, an instant answer?
It's the dual kit. It's the dual cassette, right? So it's the IgG and IgM.
IgM,
It's the dual cassette, and it gives you in 10 to 15 minutes, you get your results.
So it's an antibody test.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But that's your first tier. That's what I call tier 1, right? If you test positive, it'll tell you whether you had it or have it, and then go see a doctor. Just like when you do a pregnancy test at home, right?
So it's a screen first.
It's screened for, yeah. See, there you go. The right technique.
Dr. Asad, we were discussing yesterday that do you think we should come up with a package of testing where suppose if someone is having a sugar or diabetes, they can get those testing done with single blood drop, both antibodies as well as sugar. Or maybe if someone else is having some other problem and they do regular testing, so they can test with one kit multiple things.
Yeah,
Do you
that
think
makes total sense. It makes total
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, so like a diabetes person could go ahead and knock all of their testing out in one swing. The thing is one box of 25, and we could probably talk the manufacturer to put 31 in
30.
a month, right? Your monthly early screening test set, and have them delivered to me. Even if it costs $30, that's $1 per test, right? $1 per day. Even if they cost $30 to get them to the home, right? And whatever else you do. That to me is better than having to pay people a stimulus to stay home, because to me, early detection means early treatments and early isolation. So
The only problem, I've looked at all the literature on the antibody test, and the one big problem is there has to be a gold standard with any test. And there's no gold standard that says this antibody showing up proves that you're immune to coronavirus. There's zero gold standard at all. So you could get a positive antibody test that says that you had it before, but there's still no guarantee that it wasn't some other coronavirus that's
right.
cross-reacting. So we still don't know what to do with these tests, because a positive doesn't say you're immune, and it doesn't mean you had the actual COVID-19. It says you might have had one of the regular colds that come from coronavirus. So that's the one confounding problem, is if we do this mass testing with antibodies, we still don't know what the gold standard is. So then we can't tell you whether you had it or not still.
So the best thing to do is just look to see if you have it. And if you do, go to the next stage screening and find out.
Well, that's the problem. There isn't one because we don't have the gold standard yet.
Not yet.
Yeah,
that has to happen.
It's going to take years.
Yeah.
It's going to take years because we don't know who's immune yet. We don't know. We don't have a big test out there that's saying, okay, this person has antibodies, and let's go see them over a year whether they get COVID-19 again. So we won't know for at least a year.
Right. But
Doctor,
go ahead.
Can't we mass vaccination and can't we put antibiotics in through vaccines to people who are looks critical and who are looks more prone towards COVID-19?
So repeat your question. It was about
you're popping in and out.
What we can do is, so we can create antibodies using vaccines as well, and that way we can.
Again, that's part of the problem. We don't have a gold standard antibody test. We're creating vaccines where you cross your fingers and hope that it'll create immunity and not damage. Like one of my friends just did a study, and the reason we don't have a lot of we have 0 RNA vaccines is because of the cross reaction that it can cause the immune system to attack the brain. So there are cases of RNA vaccines causing amyloidosis and Alzheimer's disease. So if we suddenly start mass producing a vaccine and we haven't even looked to see if it causes amyloidosis and Alzheimer's disease, we're creating more problems than good. And that's going to take a while to look at. So that's why we have 0 RNA virus vaccines, because we haven't had a successful one yet that worked or didn't harm the patient. So this is new ground right now. So antibody testing after the vaccine, first of all, after knowing what I know, I don't know if I would put myself through that without really good gold standard testing about the antibody and really good information on the safety now that I remember why we don't have RNA vaccines yet.
Maybe the standard testing should just be early screening if you might have it only, not that you had it and you're free to go and you won't get it again. You can say that's not what this is about. This is about just purely testing to see if you need to see the doctor and stay home.
Yep. The first test is to do the PCR or find out if you have the virus, because those are the people we really need to know now. The antibody test, I mean, we could put off later, but really knowing who now has it and the mass testings and all, that's what we really need to know now, so we can contain those people that have active infections and keep them from spreading it, like the guy I saw at the grocery store. even though he knew he had it, you know. And that
They
was
were really mad. Should have put his
I was
hand on his
livid, and I
head.
went up to him and I had my mask on and I stayed my feet away. But I said, "You're supposed to be at home," and I confronted him. So that's the bad thing is we got to make. We're not a communist nation, so we can't force people and we can't arrest them. But at the same time, what do you do? What's the consequence if somebody doesn't care and is spreading it in the grocery store where there are vulnerable people who are doing their grocery shopping?
Well, one of the things that David K. Johnson kind of enlightened us on is that there were laws written, there are laws written, not were laws written in case of a virus spreading or pandemic situation, because people's civil liberty rights does not mean that they are able to endanger other people's lives. So there are laws written that they can make and take enforcements of such things. But nobody wanted to lose the popularity vote and do it. Seriously, that's what this whole thing was about. Nobody wanted to lose, because it's election year. Nobody wanted to lose that popularity vote of, okay, I'm going to make everybody do this. But David K. Johnson, who is an expert in these areas and has written about a lot of things, did bring this up on our show, that the government can. If they wanted to, they can, because the law was written many years ago to do that. So, but we are a freedom country, right?
I mean, it's hard to, like, sheriffs are already coming out in public statements saying they're not going to enforce any of these rules. So,
no, but here's what I say: we're free enough that we allow guns, but we don't let them shoot people. And to me, letting people walk around that could be contagious, that is sick, if you are with knowledge that they are. See, with knowledge is huge, right? With knowledge and intent. And if you are with knowledge that you have it, it's like taking a gun out and shooting a lot of people in my mind, right?
Right.
So we don't let people have guns to go shoot other people. So if you're with knowledge that you have it, then there is some responsibility and liability that should be on that person. And that's where it's going to have to get down to, right? If you were tested positive and then we find you out, then that's punishable by law. That should be punishable by law. So it's just because then you're going to make a lot more other people sick, or can. I mean, what were the odds of that person making everybody sick in that store?
Pretty high. Very high.
Yeah. So, and we don't want to punish people, but because you think it's just a simple, oh, I'm just going to run to the store and get, but they know better. This is the part I don't get, I don't understand it. But somebody said, well, the only reason why Hong Kong is surviving this is because they'll shoot you if you don't wear a mask. No, they don't.
No, they don't.
They don't shoot you.
Not even in mainland China. Not even in mainland China.
I've told my patients the reason that the Hong Kong and other countries that do these strict, not strict legal regulations, but just socially, everybody just understands it's the way to do it because they've had SARS #1 already. Yeah. And so I tell people the reason why the United States has such high numbers going up versus those nations is the shoe hygiene, the kit that he just showed. I don't see people walking around with kits like that in the United States, and we should.
Yeah, that's a nice kit. I like it. That's what I want to do. I want to make a nice essential kit, and resell it. Maybe I'll talk to someone about packaging a nice essential kit.
It was so good. Really so good to have a kit like that. I learned it from my sister who has kits for everything. So go to the bank, you have a kit. Go to the post office, you have a kit. So, so I said, when I get out of the house, I'm going to have a hygiene kit. This is my hygiene kit.
I mean, see, like I got a little emergency kit, and I keep, little things in here, candy, some business cards in case somebody finds me and they go, who is it? And it's empty now because I'm not traveling anymore, but I usually have my bee sting kit in here. And when in doubt, travel. There you go. Yeah. So, and I'll usually have a wipe like a sandy wipe in here, an alcohol wipe, Neosporin Band-Aids, and now little pouches. Good morning, Mike.
Hi.
Good evening, Mike.
How you doing, Mike?
Doing, Willie.
I'd show you my kit, but they're all by the door, so I can just grab them. So I can't easily go get them right now.
Well, my backpack happens to always be with me, and these things are. And I got other little kits in my backpack, other little, little toolkit. I used to travel with a knife everywhere, but I traveled by plane, and they started taking my knives away from me, so the knife had to go.
I have a Swiss Army knife in the car. So.
Yeah, that's what I had, was a Swiss Army knife in my backpack because of the screwdrivers. Because sometimes you have to take things apart, and I had a little toolkit. Now my little toolkit is detachables, and they didn't take that away from me for a long time. Yeah, but they did on one road trip. They took away my little toolkit as well. So I, those kind of things I couldn't travel with. I'm like, can you just take it and put it in the pilot's cockpit and then give it back to me when we get there? No, it doesn't work that way, Kim.
They used to do that earlier. I don't know why they stopped doing it. Maybe people's things got swapped from one person to another or something like that. So
they didn't want to be liable.
Yes.
What was interesting to me was I used to go to movie premieres, and they wouldn't, when the phones turned into cameras and video cameras, they would not allow anyone. So they would literally have scanners at the movie premieres, right? And if you had a phone on you, they would have a paper sack out there, and you wrote your name on the paper sack, and you put a phone in the paper sack, and you come back and get it
gave it afterwards. That's such a nice thing.
Yeah, but no phones in the movie theater. And I know too, it was probably more about so that you wouldn't interrupt other people, right? But definitely during the premieres, they would not allow cell phones at all. And I thought, and I told him one time, I wish you did this for every movie, period, because I would hate sitting there and people would get phone calls during the movie, right? They wouldn't silence the phones, but and I try to leave mine in the car, or I just silence mine when I walk in. But anyway, so yeah, technology kind of turned things around. But so Willie, what's going on in Australia?
Not much. We're getting out of the lockdown. They just loosening up the restrictions, so we're now allowed to. We're in stage 2. It's not totally over. It's stage 2 that they still have things that you need to comply with. You just can't go back and do same old. What else is interesting? Not much. The government figures, that was funny. They had the package. Then when people were filling out the government subsidy package, they put in the figure that they thought they were going to get instead of just 1. So it was like 7 billion over.
Whoa.
And then the guy said, no, this is, it's not 7 billion surplus. We haven't got this money. We have to go and borrow it. So if there's no surplus money around, there's no floating money around. So yeah, everybody just calmed down a bit after that.
Well, it's we had, I guess, a similar situation happen, but the government realized, I guess, they overpromised or overcommitted. And Nick and I, we had covered this on the show about the stimulus, right? I read it, his assistant read it, and so one of the things is it was supposed to be more bottom up, right? But it wasn't. The big companies all got bailed out beautifully. The other is they had this rubber stamp stimulus for small businesses to cover your payroll. And it was just a 10K. It was supposed to be 10K. There were no exceptions, absolutely no exceptions, except that they could come back and audit you to make sure you made payroll with it, right? But it was 10K flat. Well, the banks got a hold of that and decided, well, we can't cover this. And they changed the rules. And the rule was, we're only going to give $1,000 per employee. That's it. And if you had 10 employees and they capped at 10. So if you had 20 employees, they capped. So the banks changed the rules. That was not part of the stimulus and the rules when you filled out the application. The bank changed the rules. So you fill out the application, you're expecting the 10K so that you can cover a little bit of payroll, right? And that didn't happen. The other thing is none of the small businesses really got it. A lot of the small businesses were cut out. So, you know, how I said, you know, what they should do is go to all the millionaires and billionaires who are really not getting hit very hard by this. Some are, but the ones that would potentially reinvest in people and give them a 100% tax deduction on their investments, right? Don't cap the investments and allow them. And apparently, I guess somebody must have taken on with this. And Magic Johnson, do any of you know who he is in the NBA?
Yep.
He this past week announced that he is donating $100 million with his bank for small businesses that were minorities, because the minorities were the ones that really didn't get it because you had to qualify at a certain level. So he's donating $100 million to minority-based companies that did not get any stimulus at all.
That's good.
Novak
That's
Djokovic
really
has
good.
also contributed to the Serbian effort to fight the COVID-19. So, yeah.
Who was this?
Novak
The Serbian-
Djokovic,
Novak.
the Serbian
wow.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
contributed to his country. I do not know, don't remember the amount, but it was in, you know, $1 million or so, something like that.
Mhm.
No, I mean,
So-
these are good things.
Rakesh, I tell you, in India, we have collected around 60,000 crore through donations.
Wow, that is really good. Huh? That is
Yeah.
really good.
And those money are going on for all kinds of food and all kinds of related things, essential items for the, you know about the migrants and the poor ones.
Yes.
So that is what supply is going on.
And
Yeah.
That
because
is
If I
de-
convert that money
big
to
devastation.
yeah. So
because the tax department is heavily involved, they're saying, okay, those people who have accounts in Cayman Islands and all those Virgin Islands, they're not getting nothing of this.
They shouldn't get it. They shouldn't get it.
They put some really strict rules in the stimulus application. I actually went out and applied for the Magic Johnson package because it said for minority-owned companies, and I have minority-owned companies, and so I went out just to experience it, right? And see what it was and to understand what was the application form like and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Arthur needs to leave, so we
Oh,
should-
Dr. Arthur, thank
okay.
you so much for joining
you
us this
for
morning
joining
and
us. Thank
sharing your wisdom.
You're
We look
welcome.
forward to seeing you this evening.
and before Dr. Arthur will leave, I'll just play what we are coming up with 8 p.m.
8
Tonight.
p.m. tonight
Yeah.
with some
That's-
good Kenny G.
Very
So
nice
that's
topic.
coming up at 8 p.m. Yeah.
Does that look like me?
No, so it's a DJ Arthur show on 8 p.m. EST. It's
All right.
just a back to what I did it for you. So
Thank
so
you.
tune in at 8 p.m. EST and let's see the other side of Dr. Arthur with music and dance and a lot of songs. So
Yeah.
hope to see you soon at 8 p.m. And thank you Dr. Arthur for joining us, and we'll see you at 8 p.m. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for